Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Joe, and on this video we are going to be talking about some additional information on my tower video on safety and installation and items that I've done wrong, and harnesses, construction techniques, lightning protection. I happen to be a member of the Amateur Radio Relay League, and I was down at their headquarters in Connecticut recently and picked up a very good book. And that book has some really good additional information. The information that I had given you before was mostly from commercial installation entities, either associations or consortiums for tower safety and so forth. But this one is from the Amateur Radio Relay League, ARRL, and it is antenna towers. There's several things in it that I found very interesting. Some of it is not terribly useful for those people trying to put up a tower for their satellite television or their satellite or their long-range internet, because this goes into antenna rotors. It goes into different types of towers. Some of the towers are way overkill for what you would need for just a small home installation, but it provides excellent documentation and techniques for general tower installation. It goes into basic tower types, climbing. It spends a lot of time about climbing, safety equipment, how to climb, how not to climb, what you should be doing before you climb. I covered quite a bit of that when I was doing my harness demonstration. Items that I had not really put in before and hadn't thought much about: insurance. Insurance for yourself if you are injured, and insurance if your tower falls, damages something, or if lightning strikes the tower and then subsequently causes a fire in the house or in your building. It goes into tools, gadgets, fasteners, using cranes and lifts, which may be more than most people are considering. It goes into inspection. You can't just put a tower up and leave it. You really do have to inspect it. The recommendation I saw in here, I believe, was twice a year. I don't do it that often. I should, but I don't. I'm going to do that more often now. If you put up a tower, you should have a tower log. Something else I don't have. I have it all up in here. Not the right place for it. When you inspected the guy wires, the condition of the anchor points, the tension on the guy wires, any loose bolts, anything on the tower that you find that is starting to be compromised, that should all be in a tower log. Some of the other items, and I've written some down, there are not a lot of references. I don't believe there are references in the Antenna Towers book, but while I was researching this and my documentation, I had come across, there's a company called DX Engineering, Delta X-Ray. DX Engineering, I believe their YouTube channel runs that all together, as probably their website. Well, on their website, they have a few videos. I believe there's about 10, and one of them actually has an interview with someone who is talking towers, and he has some very interesting points there. The YouTube channel, DX Engineering, has a series, and the series is on safety on a tower, not necessarily in constructing a tower, but all about climbing, harnesses, hauling equipment up, very, very eye-opening for those that are not in that profession. I've been climbing for a couple of decades, but still there are things that you can always learn from those. And this book, this Antenna Towers book, also goes into something called trams. Now, when we work on a tower, we usually use a line to hoist items to the top, and a lot of times we use a tag line on it to hold it away from the tower, because you don't want to keep banging into the tower and damaging your antenna or your cable or something. There are other methods called trams, where you set up a line sort of at a diagonal so that you're well away from the tower, and you clip onto that and you can slide things up and down with another rope. I found it very interesting that this was the first time I'd seen it actually mentioned, is in this Antenna Towers book, but I also had seen it quite a bit in some of the YouTube logging videos. I've never seen them do it around here. I'm sure different parts of the country and different parts of the world do logging differently, but apparently in the Northwest US and Canadian, British Columbia, and probably other parts, but that's where the videos were from that I saw, they, instead of using cranes for logging, they do a lot of climbing, which is interesting in itself on how they climb, with ascenders, foot ascenders, and knee ascenders. But they also do a lot of tramming. So you may find that interesting if you're trying to get a feel for how to put up a new tower, how to put things on a new tower, how to work on your tower. You may change your mind after you see some of this stuff. Securing cable. Oh, yes. I had also mentioned it in my video, and I don't remember how much of it, but a lot of people use either electrical tape to tape their cable to the leg of a tower. Electrical tape generally lasts, but I've seen several of them where the tape gradually unwinds itself, it dries out. I've seen people use UV resistant wire ties. Those also fail. They get brittle, even though they're supposed to be for outdoors in the sun. At least one of the companies, two of the companies that I've worked with, instead use typically 14 gauge solid copper wire, insulated. Insulated helps a little because now you're not rubbing bare wire into the outside insulation of your coax. And because internally it's copper, the sun doesn't beat it up. It's going to be there 20 years after you put it up. So that's a very good suggestion. Commercial towers, of course, use cable bridges. They actually have clips. They space them apart equally. Very nice. They look wonderful. They're easy to work with. They're an added expense for a homeowner, especially if you're only running one or two cables. It's probably the right way to go, but unfortunately, I have it on my towers. I've done the copper wire around the leg with the coax. And forgive me for looking down, but I'm checking my notes. That's securing the cable. Insurance. I am covered. I hadn't thought about it directly, but there are a couple of ways that I'm covered, both for climbing and for my insurance here. My insurance company knows I have the towers. Supposedly they're part of my coverage. Certainly when we took a lightning hit early on, it wasn't a direct hit. It couldn't be attributed to the tower. They didn't ask about it. The type of damage in the house was minor, but it was garage doors, it was lawn sprinkler controls, anything that had low voltage wires that could get an induced voltage got whacked, and they just they racked it up to a lightning hit. Didn't matter where it came from. But insurance is certainly something to think about, both for personal safety and disability, loss of income. If you get hurt climbing your tower, I mean, you could be out of work, if not killed. So you have to think about that. And I'm going to touch once more because this book, again, Antenna Towers, says that many of the amateur radio installations, and mine included, I've done it to 2 of my towers, have what's called the buried section base, where you take a section of tower, either part of a regular tower section, or they make a special shorter section. You put it in the ground. You can put a circular form around it. One of the brand names is Sonotube, but it's a tubular cardboard that you put in the ground. You backfill it. You fill the concrete inside, which makes a nice smooth cylinder so that the frost doesn't heave it. Those are very good, but they're pretty rigid. And you have to make sure that you understand, if you're putting up a guide tower, the tower will move a little, but the concrete won't, and something's got to give. Either it's the first joint where the bolts start rubbing, or at the base where the steel starts fracturing. So you do have to be careful with that. You have to be extra careful with your guide tensions if you're using a poured base. What I should have done is what they call a pinned base, where you pour a base just as you would, except that you don't stick a tower section in it. You put a fairly big pin in it, and then the tower manufacturer makes a base that has a hole for that pin and 3 short legs so that you can put a tower section on it. And now the base can't move laterally, but it can angle a little. So that's a very good way of doing it. I have to say, I don't know if I've ever seen that done. I've seen bases for amateur radio put in the ground and just buried. They just put dirt around them. Use a house bracket and they're done, because they're only going up maybe 40 feet. They're not going up 100 feet, such as mine is. I've seen bases poured with concrete, not as many. I've not seen one with a pin, but I know that should be the way to do it, and I'm sure commercially that's what you would do. So I talked about the DX engineering. I talked about the manual here. This is going to be just an addendum. I'm going to put this up on YouTube as an addendum, you might say. It's a short video. I was going to take down my original one, modify it, but I think I'm leaving the original tower video up there. I hope you watch that if this is the first one you've come across. That's quite a bit longer. It goes into personnel safety, construction mistakes I've made, lightning protection, and some of the documentation used in the industry. There's a TIA standard, Telecommunications Industry Association, that's used for wind load and some of the safety stuff. And then there's one that's put out by tower consortiums that Motorola has done the manual on, which goes into great detail on everything about towers and their supporting structures, the buildings, the lightning protection. It's quite extensive. Unfortunately, both, I believe, the TIA and that other, I'm going to confuse it. I want to call it an MR26, but that's actually a piece of stereo equipment I used to own. But I've referenced it in the first video. Both of those are fairly expensive. If you're doing this one shot, you see if you can find somebody that you can borrow it from, or have them tell you what the appropriate parts are, or your professional engineer. My towers were done by a professional engineer. That was a requirement of my building inspector, which is a good thing. It makes everybody feel a lot safer. Items that I would have done maybe wrong are going to be much better now. So I think that's about it. As I said, it will be short. Thank you for watching. I hope you watch my other videos. I'm probably up to 14 or 15 now. I'm just getting rolling. It'll take me a while. I'm not trying to be a content creator solely for the purpose of content. I'm trying to put items out that are relevant, of interest, and provide some education. So please take a look at the other videos. If you like or dislike any of them or comment on them, I'd love that. It would be wonderful. Give me some ideas if there's something else along these lines that you like. And thanks for watching. And you have a good day and a safe tower climb.